Good afternoon. This is FIDE Senior Trainer, International Master Chess Coach Sekhar Sahu welcomes you on behalf of Sports Authority of Gujarat and Gujarat State Chess Session to this intermediate training session. Hello, Tanisk and Creative Mind. Good afternoon. Now, I will present to you some positions and continue with the topic today, compensation for the queen. In the opening or middle game or end game, whatever. Now first let me present to you this interesting position between Ramos versus Costa. Now for example, black queen is attacked. So there is a possibility that he will offer queen exchange at this place. The point is, now after queen exchange, white will be unable to win with the extra pawn by create, because the king is in the square. The king is in the square, very much in the square. So there is no problem about the pawn. The king is in the square. The king can come. The king can enter. Not this one. Rather, I have to say this one. King can come in the square. And after that, he is in control. So my question is, shall we offer queen exchange? Is it a good move? I mean, suppose black plays queen here. Now, is it a good move? Because on queen into queen, on pawn into queen, the pawn break is no problem. He will take it. King is very much in the square. After the pawn break, he will take it. And the king can control this pawn, because he is in the square of the pawn. So, my question is this position okay? Is this queen exchange is okay? Hello Suvankar, good afternoon. So, queen exchange, is this okay? Because after queen exchange, the king is in the square. So please now give your evaluation. Shall black exchange the queen? Your answer is white can entry. Tanish says that is not good exchange because white king can take entry. So Subankar and Creative Mind, do you agree with it? He says queen exchange is bad because queen c8 is there. Okay. I got two answers. What about Subankar? So is the queen exchange is okay? Because after the queen exchange, the king is in the square. So what is Subankar's opinion? Shall we exchange the queen? Shall we exchange the queen? Hello Tirth. There is another f4 break. Actually, Subankar's answer is right, but not f4. The point is, the judgment of black is okay, queen exchange, and there is no danger, king in the square. But not f4, e4. The reason is, you can create a pass pawn by force, only by e4. f4 does not work. f4 will not work. Because after f4, he can play here, maybe pawn to e4. Maybe pawn into pawn also. Maybe pawn into pawn, and then now you can do this. The king is coming straight. So it is not f4. It is e4. e4 is winning. The point is, now by that time the king approaches, black king. Of course, black has nothing other than he will try to approach the pawn. But meanwhile, white will force a pass pawn. Now the threat is to play pawn push. And after that, the threat will come. This pawn. The king cannot watch both these sides. Now king is losing here. Now pawn break. Maybe. 1 minute. Maybe what can I do here? I think this is okay. This is okay because the king is in the control of the pawn. Even if you reach here, even if the pawn comes here, the still king can catch. So we have time. That means you have to bring 2 more moves to bring the king before that pass pawn is created. So this is why e4 is the one that spoils the plan. You can do this break also, g4 also. What else? Suppose you play pawn into g4. Now f5. It is faster. The king cannot return. It is too late. Pawn into king cannot return. This break. So we have to make sure there is another f4 break. Yeah, f4 break after e4. I think after e4, maybe f4 is not the best move now. Maybe f4 is not the correct move now. Maybe because you can come here. Now on this he has this move, and now this move he has break. I don't think it is easy. So e4 is the correct thematic correct move. Okay, all right. I think this is correct. f4, e4, only move, then f4. Then whatever you do, then g4. He cannot take the pawn. The only move is pawn into, but g5. And now pawn push. The king is tied down to both the pawns. Both the pawns. He cannot return. Pawn break. On pawn into, pawn push. King here, pawn push. Pawn push. Cannot. All right. Okay, next. What about this position? The position occurred between 2 legendary players. White is Judith Polgar and black is Garibay Kasparov. Normally, rook and knight versus rook is a draw. Normally. Even this position is a draw. Rook and bishop versus rook is more difficult. Much more difficult for the defender. For the defending side, rook and bishop is much stronger than rook. Here, defending side is having much more easier thing because knight is not such a bigger force than bishop and rook coordination. The point is the correct defense is required. So I will just Kharagpur. Hello. Okay. Now the position king check. Why check? Because you need to come up to cover the knight. You need a cover. So check. King. Now I think the position could have been draw. Now in the position, instead of all this thing, he could have, okay, this is okay. Maybe it was better to play here. It was better to go here. Okay, doesn't matter. Still, now he should have gone all the way. Not, okay, wait a minute. Check. And now suddenly, the king and rook are circling the white king. Probably I cannot say what is the best defense, but this should have been a draw. Maybe here king was coming. That was more to the point. Okay, anyway. Now rook. The point of the rook move, you will see the point of the rook move. Now this. Suddenly white is in zugzwang. White is in zugzwang now. He gives a check. There is nothing better. Now if you come here, his rook is tied down to the back rank. Rook, no, not here of course. He will play rook here maybe. The rook is tied down to the back rank as well and he cannot take the knight. Gradually you make progress. Gradually. So rook goes other way. Amazingly, now this is check and it is winning by force. Zugzwang. Now the king rook cannot go because discover check, knight f6 wins, or knight g7 check, or knight f6 check wins. So on rook here, he will run into zugzwang. Now if after the rook move, maybe he will just maybe king here. Now rook check, king here. Now there is no check, and this is finished. Okay. What about queen c8? Well, in the previous position, if you are, what the whole point is, the queen exchange was bad. Queen c8 also, I mean black will survive. In the earlier position, in the earlier position, queen b6, here the resource main problem is that 2-1 majority is there. 2-1 majority is there. So on queen here, suppose you play queen c8, it is not easy. It is not easy for white to advance the pawns. So black will survive. He can play pawn to f5 and then to e4, and he will hang on. Now the position is the queen is in ideal place protecting. Now these pawns are paralyzed, so very difficult for white. But after queen exchange, queen b6, simply queen exchange wins by force. By force. Okay. So I have already done this one. The next position. Now this is between Nasdorf and Auerbach. The typical endgame errors, typical mistakes in endgame a player should avoid. Now the position is white to play. What should white do? Thank you, Chess Kharagpur. Players should like, because if they are watching every day and learning, they should appreciate and give a liking. It doesn't harm to put a like. Good afternoon, Harsi. Now, typical mistakes in endgame. Now, for example, Yuri Auerbach was a great endgame master. I mean, if you ask me, the first grandmaster who did extensive work on endgame is Dr. Rubin Fine. Dr. Rubin Fine, his book Basic Chess Ending, here it is a landmark. It is the first chess book, means systematically arranged. Of course, there were a lot of mistakes were there, but then that was the book. It is the base for endgames literature. And after that, Yuri Auerbach wrote a series of books on endgame, comprehensive chess endings, about rook ending, pawn ending, bishop knight ending, bishop versus knight, queen ending, and mixed ending. So Yuri Auerbach systematically made an extensive collection and analyzed, and that is wonderful work. But most of his example he borrowed it from Rubin Fine. But then after Auerbach, Mark Dorohevsky, there are so many endgame books like Muller-Krusten's chess book on endgames, fundamental chess ending, then Batsport chess ending. There are a lot of books on endgame came, then specialized books. However, it was Yuri Auerbach who extensively wrote lot of fantastic endgame books. Now the pawn is under attack. How should white play? Typical mistakes in endgame. Good afternoon, Fakir Maji. Now the point is, let me tell you, the typical one mistake, the game is going down. Already black has an advantage. What is the advantage of black? A backward pawn. Black has advantage, the pawn is backward and the square is weak. Black has three advantages. Backward pawn, white has black three advantages: one, backward pawn, weak square, and central superiority. Central superiority. He has got this break later on. And his king can also join. So black has got advantage, the king can join, central pawn break, and bad pawn, bad square. However, despite all these things, white can defend the game, give resistance. The, the point is, all the time a player should look for active moves. Active move. You have a choice to defend the pawn, like rook f(c1), like bishop d2 or nd3. White is at a critical juncture. So the active move nc3 is correct because you are attacking the pawn. Exchanging the pawn is wonderful for white. Bad pawn and good pawn. So after nd3, the game will be held. He will play knight there, defending. He will not play other moves. This. Now the position is little better for white, black. That's all. This is definitely because the knight is centralized, preventing the break easily, and he has got time. He has time. He can bring the king also, play f3, king f2. Though black is better, it is not winning. nd3 is the correct way to play. Active move. But typical mistake, bd2. Now instead of this move, he played bd2. Now one mistake, Ganpat ho gaya. Just one small error with so many pieces on the board. Two rooks, bishop, knight. The position, white will never recover from this position. Going down. Just see how Grandmaster Avarba crushed this small mistake. Knight. Okay, still everything looks alright because there is no material gain. But now you compare this wonderful knight and this bad bishop. The advantage is decisive. The reason is white has no counterplay. White has no counterplay. And rook is already on the C line. So he will just double the rooks on the C line, release the knight and then enter. Black will keep improving. White will just watch. Do nothing. Cannot do anything. Okay. एक मिस्टेक में गणपत हो गया. Now knight here. Just see the exploitation. See the exploitation. Knight. Why knight here? You have to open the file. You have to double the rooks and take the file. So tempo and now knight. Seventh rank. If you keep pushing the pawns, you become more and more problems. Defending problems. Now double. Next, double the rook. Take charge. So now this next job, bring the king to center, king coming to this point, and then pawn breakthrough should be winning. However, despite all that, execution has to be perfect. Just see. Perfect. Ideally brought the knight to that place. Okay, next job is king. Well, this is a blunder. But he is running out of moves. Just see what else you will do. This is a blunder. Now, for example, if you made a blunder, other moves also not appealing because he has to continuously watch the b2 pawn also, and king cannot come. Now there is a problem also. He cannot even come here also. That is also getting trouble. After the move also, the king pawn breakthrough and king. So he tried to do some trick. Now no counterplay. It is why this move. Of course you have got other moves here, like you can come and attack, but there is a possibility that counterplay. The rook should not come to enter in the open line. So king takes charge, and after that he will win one by one. This is lost. So one careless move, everything becomes bad. That is why in opening you make a mistake, you have middle game to recover. In a middle game you make a mistake, I will fight in the end game. But you cannot make a mistake in end game. Even if a world champion makes, he is in trouble. Of course, even great players have made mistakes in end game. So, for example, I would say Magnus Carlsen threw away a win against Vidit Gujarati in the last Tata Steel. Like that, there are 2-3 mistakes in end game I saw in that great tournament. Okay, so here I think Erigase Arjun had a fantastic performance. He was actually a rapid champion in that at Calcutta Tata Steel, and here in the Tata Steel at Vaikanji, he won the tournament of Tata Steel Challenger. Great performance. Especially Erigasi Arjun's game against Ganguly was marvelous, very imaginative, very good in calculation. I will have to download that game to show you that. I saw that was a fantastic performance by Erigasi Arjun. Okay, so let me take you to the next game. Erigasi Arjun I played once, maybe in 2016 or 17 in Bhubaneswar GM tournament, and I was completely winning. After a long battle, I got very tired and distracted and I lost the game, but I was completely winning. Okay, hello Suresh bhai. Alright, here. Now, the position, white has a distinct advantage. What is the advantage? Black has 3 pawn islands. This is a pawn island, weak pawn. And this side 2 and 2. So 3 pawn island. Second, the bishop is superior. This is inferior. And third, the king is active. After the move f3, restricting the both knight and bishop, the king enters very easily. So white has a decisive advantage even with material equality. So let us see the excellent execution by the legendary world champion Karpov, who is one of the best ever endgame players in chess history. If you ask me 5 to 7 best endgame players, today Magnus Carlsen is the best ever in chess history. Fantastic player. Okay. I would say Vasily Smyslov, Ulf Andersson, Rafael Vaganian, Petrosian, I would say Valery Salov, I would say there are so many lineup. Great endgame players. Here, Anatoly Karpov demonstrates an easy win, f3. Restrictions of opponent's minor piece is a golden rule. So, this pawn move restricts both the knight and bishop. Very good. And next, king is coming. Now, exchange rook. Okay. Now, why exchange? Because the rook will penetrate. After the move king, he will penetrate rook to c7. So, black has nothing to do. So, better exchange the rook. Now, there are weakness. This is weak pawn, bad bishop, and also a target. Of course, he could have played this move also. But priority, bring the king. Now, b4. f3, yeah, it is a good move. Yes, Erigasi Arjun, his level of concentration is very good. Erigasi Arjun, the young talent, I really admired his game against Sekhar Ganguly. Ganguly is a very strong player, and he gave a piece sack and really outplayed him. Yeah. Now restriction of opponent minor piece. No more knight entry. The point is, white does not mind the knight exchange because the same color bishop. If you have seen the game Auerbach's, that he has demonstrated all these grandmasters, master of good bishop, bad bishop. Now, waiting. Now we keep improving. Take, and now you have to wait. Of course, this is also winning. Just wait. Zugzwang. It is a Zugzwang. Now bishop is restricted only to these squares. he will lose the game. For example, you come here. Now what we need in the position, I would have bishop to entry. Now this position is lost. Okay, we can work out some certain moves. For example, forced. Now you cannot afford to exchange the bishop. King pawn ending is lost. There is nothing better. He is giving a threat of entering into the weakness. Forced. And now g4. No entry to the king. Now you have got a tempi. Zugzwang. Now the king moves either this way or this way and entering and winning the game. The center pawn will fall and also with that game will fall. So this is a very, very interesting game and example, exploitation of small advantage. Even though the material factor very little, The advantage is decisive because the defending side has no counterplay. The systematic improvement. Alright. Let us see this position. Now this position, it should be draw because knight anywhere on the board can restrict a pawn, can watch the pawn. But there is a problem, there is another passed pawn. So white to play and find how to draw the game. How to draw the game. Okay, creative mind. Some of my successful students, I will tell you, Orissa has got now a lot of good IMs, GMs and all. So I trained all the Orissa top players except Satya Pragya. Satya Pragya is an IM. He deserved to become a GM. He failed it. But Debashish Das was under my personal training. Debashish Das, Orissa. Swayams Mishra, Orissa. Padmini Raut, Orissa. Kiran Manisha Mahanti, Anuyas Upadhyay. All these are title players. Rakesh Janna, Siddhanta Mahapatra. All these players who are having IM, GM, WGM title are all my students. I have done personal coaching. I have done a group training. And other than that, I can say other than the Orissa players, I trained Tejas Bakre, GM from Gujarat. The first GM of Gujarat, roughly about 2 years. I trained also Dhyani Dave, who is a WIM, first WIM of Gujarat. Then I trained who else? I would say among the top players, Utkal Ranjan Sahu of Orissa also is my student. And I would say Sekhar Sahu is my most successful student. Sekhar Sahu, he was under my training for 4 years. He became IM, then GM, and especially became India number 2. And I really appreciate that Sekhar Sahu was the first student to come out publicly. Only first student, I would say, who claimed that because of my coach, I am Sekhar Sahu, I came to this level. And in Indian Express, one of the foremost chess newspaper of India, he gave an interview. But normally, the students never give success to their trainers, coaches. It is natural. Normally, it is not that I am any heart or anything. But let me tell you, I will tell you honestly, if there is no blessing of the teacher, the student does not go high. That counts a lot. That counts a lot. Of course, the students go and they go to higher coaches, they go to work, they get more success. But these are my success. Swapnil Dopade, he was in my camp for about nearly 20 days, 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks he was in my camp. Oh, no, 1 month. 1 month in my camp, and from that camp, he improved tremendously. So these are my students who have been very successful. Other than my Orissa student, Sekhar Sahu, and I would say Swapnil Dopade, Tejas Bakre, and Dhyani Dave. These are my other students from other area. I trained other children, lot of children, but not extensively. I have done hundreds of chess camps all around the country in India, and also 4 times in USA. I made 4 chess camps in United States of America. Okay. Earlier also 2, like 6 camps in America. No, not Durga Prasad Mahapatra. He was not my student, but a good friend. I did not train because in one of my camp or 2 of my camps, he was my assistant coach. I mean, I used to train the blind chess players and he was helping also. Freely. He was doing an honorary job. Now, correct move by Suvankar. And horse he goes. This is the right move. Right move. Now this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. The right move. If knight d7, the idea looks same because the pawn is running away. The knight should come via this or this. But this is a wrong square. Wrong square. Wrong square. Why this is wrong? Because if you play king f6, the pawn runs away. Now, this is winning. And if you play king d6 also loses. Suppose you play king d6 also, b4 is going. And d7 also loses. The idea, you are coming to this point. So you may ask me, what is the difference from knight to e6 or knight to d7? The point is, on knight e6, you are watching the other pawn also. You are not only coming here or coming here, you are watching this pawn also. This is why knight e6 is more correct. Now, defended. So, knight, instead of playing on c5, knight is in a better place to watch these squares and these squares. You can't give the pawn. Okay, if you play pawn b4, it is nothing, not terror. King. Now you are forced to push the pawn. And now take. And now knight is an ideal place to watch this. That is why knight on d4 is better way, and it can come via c6. Suppose you play king to b5. Suppose you play king. Then you can slow down king to f7. Force him to go backward. Force him. Catch. Now in the square. Now king in the square of the pawn. King is already in the square. That gives freedom to the knight. That gives freedom to the knight to come and watch. Draw. Well done, Subankar. If you ask me, personally, I trained 6 players on the way to the grandmaster level. 6 players, and maybe a dozen players to become IM, and 2 WGMs and some WIMs. Well, I have no expectation. I just want to help the youngsters. Probably